You've always been a disappointment, Dad. You ruin everything you touch. Ever had your own child say that to you after you spent your whole life trying to protect them? Mine did. That night, while water hammered the roof and my grandson cried for help, I understood silence had a price. I didn't yell, didn't beg. I just started doing what they never thought I would. Before we jump in, I want to know where in the world are you right now, and what time are you listening? Let me know in the comments. The rain had started early, steady, and slow. I was stirring a cup of instant mix when the phone rang sharp enough to stop my hand midair. It was my grandson, his words broken by sobs. "Grandpa, I can't get out. The door's locked. Mommy won't wake up." My chest froze. I asked where his dad was. He left. He's mad again. I told him to stay on the line. He sniffled, said he was hungry. Then, only breathing. I called my son next. No answer. When he finally picked up, his tone carried more annoyance than concern. "Dad, don't start. You don't know what's going on. Your boy called me crying. You locked him in a room. He laughed once. He's dramatic. You always believe him." I hung up. That laugh clung harder than his words. For years I'd told myself he'd grow out of it, that anger fades, that neglect softens. But as the clock pushed past midnight, I knew better. You can only look away so long before it starts to rot you from within. When the boy stayed with me, he ate like someone waiting to be told to stop. Never loud, never messy. I thought I was respecting boundaries by staying out of it. Turns out respect can hide cowardice if you hold it long enough. The phone buzzed again. "Don't call this house again tonight." The letters blurred on the screen. I wanted to think he'd calm down by daylight, but people like him don't. They dig in, pulled my coat from the hook hands, unsteady, as the zipper caught halfway. Had no planned drive there, call the cops something, but staying put felt worse. The downpour met me at the porch. Stepped through it, the smell of wet dirt and rust clinging to my breath. The car engine groaned awake. Wipers fought a losing battle. That boy's voice wouldn't stop Mommy's not waking up. Halfway to Portland, I pulled over chest tight. Fear-guilt hard to tell which was heavier. Years of excuses caught up fast. I'd mistaken patience for love, silence for peace. Waited until the storm thinned to a drizzle. The dashboard clock blinked 2:17, the thermos untouched. Thunder rolled somewhere distant, more a warning than a sound. This wasn't only about the boy anymore. It was every swallowed word, every time I'd told myself, not my place. But it always had been. Turned the car around, not home, just a way to think. Once silence cracks, it spreads. When I reached the porch again, the sky had softened, the world washed, but uneasy. Hung the coat where it always belonged. The phone sat dark on the counter. Left it that way. The house felt bare, though honest. Sat with a pen, wrote one line before my hand began to tremble. I won't stay silent again. He opened the door with the same tired arrogance I'd seen too many times. What now, Dad, here to play the hero again? Didn't answer. The room reeked of beer and disinfectant. His wife lay on the couch, pale but breathing. The boy clung to her side. "You left him locked in," I said. He rolled his eyes. "You don't know what she's like when she drinks." I had to step out. Stop acting like I'm the bad guy. Wanted to believe him like always, but his face didn't match the words. Picked up my grandson's jacket from the floor. He's coming with me for a few days. He didn't stop me. Maybe thought I'd give up again. Back home, the boy barely spoke, tracing circles on the table. "What do you want for breakfast?" "Anything warm," he said. Made oatmeal. He ate slow, careful, as if it might be taken away. When he finished, he asked, "Is Mommy mad at me?" Swallowed hard. No, son. Grown-ups make mistakes. He nodded eyes, saying he'd heard that before. By afternoon, the school counselor called. She'd noticed bruises couldn't prove much. "If you're worried, document everything. Don't wait." That word stuck document. Days passed steadily. He followed me everywhere, even in the garden. No smiles, but he hummed while planting seeds. I almost believed things could stay that way. Then a car door slammed hard enough to shake the porch. My son stood there, met him before he reached the steps. "Give him back," he said. "You're poisoning him against me. He needs to feel safe," I said. "Safe. You raised me. You think you know that word?" That one cut deeper than he knew. I let him vent his anger, still his only armor. When he ran out, I said, "Go home, Thomas." For a moment, the scared boy he once was flashed through, then vanished. He spat on the ground and left. The next day, a note waited in the mailbox. "You're not taking my family from me." The shaky handwriting made it worse. I called Marion, an old friend who'd become a child welfare lawyer. "Walter," she said, "you finally ready to talk?" "I think so. Don't know where to start." "Start with the truth," she said. "Everything else can be built from there." Told her about the bruises, neglect the night of the call. She didn't interrupt, only the scratch of her pen. "Can you help? I can guide you," she said, "but you'll have to stand up yourself." After hanging up, I stared at a photo on the shelf. Thomas, as a boy, gap-toothed, holding a glove too big for him. I remembered him running toward me after games. Somewhere between that child and this man, something fractured. Maybe in both of us. Couldn't eat that night. The boy fell asleep on the couch, clutching his bear. His breathing steady, soft. Thought of the years I'd mistaken restraint for wisdom, how noble it felt, until it started costing people I loved. Rain tapped faintly on the glass. Pulled a chair close, opened the notebook, began writing what Marion called a record: dates, incidents, the call, the threats. My hand trembled but kept moving. The boy stirred, whispered a word I couldn't catch. Something in me shifted too, like pressure before a storm. A car engine flared in the distance, then faded. Sat still, pen resting on the page, wondering how long before the world noticed what I was doing. The clock ticked, louder than usual. Reached for the thermos, took a sip, wrote another line, not from anger, but from knowing I couldn't look away again. The phone rang. Let it go once, twice before answering. "Mr. Brooks," a woman said, "this is the Child Protection Unit. We need to schedule a visit." Glanced at the boy asleep, his hand tight around the bear. "All right," I said. "Come by whenever you're ready." A few days past the house, carrying a strange kind of calm. He slept through the nights, but twitched now and then, breath-catching before easing. I hid my worry. Kids sense it, no matter how well you pretend. Kept the notebook close. Each night, once he drifted off, I wrote what I used to overlook the shouting during holidays, the excuses for bruises the weekends. Thomas disappeared. Each entry pressed heavier on the page, but the truth finally stayed still. Wednesday brought a call from an unknown number. A rough voice muttered, "You don't know what you're getting into, old man. Leave it alone." Then silence. First thought it was Thomas, but the tone was colder, practiced. Either way, the message landed, the same: stay quiet. Marion stopped by with papers under her arm and worry across her face. "Be careful," she said. "If he's making threats, write them down, even the calls. I can't prove it's him. You don't have to yet. Just keep track." This isn't revenge, Walter. It's safety. For him and for you. Her words lingered long after she left. I'd never thought of myself as someone needing protection. I'd spent years handling classrooms full of restless teenagers. This was different, my own blood turning into something I didn't recognize. That night, headlights paused at the driveway. They stayed just long enough to tighten my chest. I waited for a door to open, but none did. Then they vanished, leaving the house still. The next day, the boy whispered that his father had called from school. "He misses me," he said. "He said you're trying to take me away." I answered, "You know I'd never take you from anyone. I just want you safe." He stared at his shoes. I just want him to stop yelling. Had no promise strong enough for that, so I poured milk and let him finish in peace. 2 days later, a social worker named Kelly arrived. She was polite, steady, asked about meals, routines, the boys' moods. I answered simply while he built towers with blocks at her feet. When she asked about Thomas, my voice stumbled. He's angry, always has been. I thought life would calm him, but it only gave him more to blame. Kelly nodded, jotting notes. We'll review the reports. It might take time. Marion called again soon after. You're doing the right thing, she told me, even if it doesn't feel that way. Her faith in systems ran deeper than mine. I'd seen how easily people slipped through cracks wide enough for a child to fall through. Still, I thanked her. That evening, another call came, no number shown. I hesitated, then picked up. A breath. Then, you're ruining us. You think anyone will believe an old man over me, Thomas? No mistaking it this time. My throat went dry. Could have yelled back, listed the evidence, but only managed. You already did that yourself before hanging up. The boy stood in the hallway, holding his bear. Was that Dad? Yeah, I said. Just talking. He didn't move, only watched, studying my face to learn what danger looks like. Pretended to read the paper while my eyes wandered to the window. Every noise outside grew sharper, the scrape of branches, the low hum of passing cars. Waited for a knock that never came. Later poured myself a drink. The first sip burned. The second didn't. Sat at the same table where I'd once taught Thomas to write his name. Remembered his grin when he got the letters right. You're going to be somebody, I'd told him. Maybe that's where I failed, pushed him so hard to be something that he began hating what he came from. The thought stayed. Guilt always sounds reasonable when the house is still. Almost called Marion to say I was done, that it wasn't worth tearing the family apart. Then my eyes caught a drawing on the fridge, 2 stick figures under a crooked sun, me and Grandpa scrawled beneath. Stared at it until the lines blurred. The border between right and necessary vanished. By midnight the glass was empty. I rinsed it once and left it upside down to dry. Walking past the boy's room, I stopped. He had one arm around the bare mouth, open slightly, breathing steady. Adjusted the blanket, stayed there till my knees hurt. Wind brushed through the trees, soft but steady. I waited until it passed, then went to bed, unsure whether the day had ended or just changed shape. Thomas didn't wait long to strike back. The first blow came through a friend who called, saying my son had posted about me online, an old man losing his mind, stealing a child for attention. I didn't need to see it. The words alone did enough damage. The next day, a neighbor stopped me at the mailbox. Heard there's trouble, she murmured, concern stretched thin over curiosity. I nodded, gave a short answer, and kept walking. Her gaze followed until the door shut. Small towns thrive on that pity dressed as gossip. Marion called later. Don't go online, Walter. Let him talk. It'll burn out. It won't, I said. He's just starting. The boy sat at the table drawing on old envelopes, sketching trees and stick figures. Can I give this to Dad? Maybe later. He smiled, proud of it, then kept coloring. I couldn't tell him that anything from this house would only fan the fire. 2 days later, a police officer knocked. He carried himself with that tired patience I'd seen in people who'd been through too much. Your son filed a complaint, he said. Claims harassment. I let him in. He glanced around the boy, watching cartoons, the papers on my desk. Everything okay here? We're fine, I said. He's just scared of losing control. He jotted a note. We check every report. You understand? Of course. When he left, the weight hit harder than anger. Thomas had turned law into a weapon. I'd spent decades teaching kids about integrity, and here I was, learning how thin it could stretch. That evening, Marion arrived without warning, hair pulled back, eyes sharp. They're building a case, she said, setting down her bag. Not against you, against him. I have statements, medical notes, timelines. You did the right thing, keeping records. It doesn't feel right, I said. Feels like dragging my own through the mud. Justice isn't clean. It's not pride, it's truth. She opened her laptop, started typing. The keys clicked, steady and calm. I brewed tea, set it by her elbow. She drank half before closing the lid. He'll push back harder now. Don't answer. I kept her advice until the third night when the phone rang during dinner. Picked up before I could think. You think you can turn my kid against me? You're pathetic. He deserves better, Thomas. You want to see what you deserve. His laugh came low and mean. Keep pushing. He hung up. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. Was that Dad? The boy asked. Yes. Is he mad again a little? He went back to eating, chewing slow. Kids learn to survive tension like weather. They feel it, brace, move through it. I hated that he'd adapted so well. That night, the porch light flickered. Probably the bulb, I told myself, still checked the locks twice. The next day, news traveled fast. Thomas had shown up at work drunk. Security escorted him out, someone filmed it, and by noon, it was online. I didn't watch, but others sent it anyway. Marion called soon after. This changes things, she said. He can't hide behind his image anymore. I'm not trying to humiliate him. You're not. He's doing that himself. We scheduled a meeting with Child Protection for the next week. Marion would join. I agreed, though part of me still hoped he'd call first, not to fight, just to say something human. Hope dies slow. That evening, my grandson sat by the glass-tracing fog with his finger. Grandpa, do people stop being mad? Sometimes, I said. Sometimes they just run out of things to fight about. Then what they get still. Is that good or bad? Depends what the stillness is for. He nodded and went back to drawing. I turned to the desk where Marion's folder waited. My name filled every page, signed where she'd marked, not from certainty, just necessity. The phone buzzed before dawn. Marion's voice came through tight but clear. You might want to sit down, she said. A neighbor came forward, heard shouting and glass breaking at Thomas's house last week. Couldn't speak. It wasn't surprise, just the kind of exhaustion that comes when fear finally proves itself right. Send it, I said. Poured a cup I didn't touch. The boy shuffled in, dragging his blanket. Can I see Mom soon? Not yet, I said. They're helping her get better. Is she mad? No. She's resting. He climbed onto the chair, half awake, the blanket trailing. I saw the doubt flicker, though he nodded like he believed me. Children always know when the truth's been trimmed to fit them. By noon, Marion showed up with her briefcase and that familiar edge in her movements. The investigation's moving faster, she said, spreading papers across the table. They've scheduled a hearing. The woman's statement could shift everything. Think they'll believe me. They'll believe the evidence, she said. That's why you've kept the notes. The doorbell rang mid-conversation. I hesitated, expecting Thomas, but it was only the mailman. A stack of letters, one stamped from the agency. I set it beside the notebook, letting it sit while Marion went over the next steps. She caught the drift in my face. You're thinking about him again. I can't help it. He's still my son. That doesn't mean you owe him the rest of yourself. Her words stayed sharp long after she left. I took the letter to the porch and tore it open. The hearing was set for 2 weeks. Both Thomas and I were required to appear. The next day, I dropped the boy at school. His teacher, Mrs. Dawson, stopped me. He's been withdrawn, she said. But he told the counselor, you make him feel safe. I nodded, unsure if that was comfort or a weight. Back home, the phone rang again, Thomas's wife this time. Her tone shook, but her words were clear. I filed a statement, she said. I couldn't stay silent anymore. They said you started it. Thank you. Didn't know what to call, what I felt, relief, guilt, something tangled between. I'm glad you did, I managed. The day drifted by, made lunch, didn't eat, logged her call in the notebook. That evening, the boy and I played cards. He beat me twice, grinning wide for the first time in weeks. Can we play again tomorrow, as many times as you want? When he slept, I sorted through Marion's folder. A short affidavit caught my eye. Daniel's the neighbor who always waved but never spoke. He'd seen Thomas yelling at his wife, throwing something at the car. Sparse words, but enough to paint the truth. The phone buzzed again, a message from Thomas, you're destroying us. You'll regret this. Didn't answer. Turned the phone face down. Moments later, Marion texted, ignore him. We're almost there. Almost there. The phrase lingered without shape. Justice, maybe. Or just the end of pretending. Opened the notebook, added a line beneath the last entry. He's afraid now. That means the truth is close. The clock struck 12. I closed the book, placed it back on the shelf, and turned off the lamp. Passing the boy's room, I saw his blanket kicked off again. Covered him, watched the steady rise of his chest, then stepped away. Downstairs, the glass rattled faintly from the wind. I stood still, waiting, but nothing followed. Marion called before dawn, her tone tired but clear. The agency's moving forward, she said. The hearing's confirmed. That soon, they want it quick for the boy's sake. No room left for argument. She was right, though my stomach clenched all the same. The boy slept on the couch again, blanket tangled around him, said the bedroom felt too big. I started breakfast eggs, toast, orange juice. The smell woke him. He blinked, hair sticking out, still half in dreams. Do I have school today? Yes. And maybe we'll stop by the park after. With the ducks. Small promises kept us both steady. After dropping him off, I met Marion downtown. She had a folder full of notes and printouts. We're close, she said, handing me a statement. My own handwriting stared back, dates, details, words I'd once avoided. Reading them felt like putting myself on trial. I don't like how it sounds, I said. Makes me look like I ignored everything. You did, she said softly. That's what makes it real. I nodded, throat tight. She gathered her things, paused at the door. You're doing what most wouldn't. The drive home stretched longer than it should have. At a red light, I noticed my knuckles white against the wheel. Loosened my grip, breathed. A dark sedan sat across the street when I pulled up. Empty, or maybe not. I went in, trying to ignore the thought. Probably someone resting. Probably. Mail came later. On top, a letter from Thomas. 2 short lines. You're not winning anything. You're ruining lives. I folded it once, slipped it into the folder. Another entry for the record. Picked up the boy from school. He ran toward the car, waving a paper cutout, 2 figures under a sun. It's us, he said, then grinned. And a dog. I didn't know we had one. We could. He hummed the whole ride home. At the park, he tossed crumbs to the ducks with careful focus. Watching him, I realized how little he needed time safety, someone who stayed. After dinner, he watched cartoons while I organized Marion's files. Each page, medical notes, reports, witness statements, felt heavier than the last. Neglect written in formal language. When he went to bed, I cleaned the kitchen, letting routine keep my mind steady. Around 10, another message came. You should stop before you regret it. I photographed it, sent it to Marion, then set the phone aside. Rain came slow. I sat on the couch listening, thinking of the hearing, of seeing Thomas again, of whether he'd look away or meet my eyes. The boy murmured my name once in his sleep. I tucked the blanket back and watched him settle. The papers waited on the table. I added the photo of the text to the folder, now thick with proof, then closed it carefully. 3 days later, the court letter came thin but heavy enough to dampen my palms. I didn't open it right away. Fed the boy, drove him to school. He hummed a tune from his play, cheerful in a way I envied. Back home, the envelope sat on the counter. I tore it open, 1-page confirmation date instructions. Seeing it printed made everything final. No silence left to hide behind. Marion called right after. You all right? I guess so. You sound like a man walking to the gallows. I've been doing that for years, I said. This time, I'm just facing it. She'll fight dirty, she warned. I already know. Spent the next hour sorting the folder again, letting the repetition steady me. Each page in place gave shape to the chaos. At noon, the teacher emailed. He drew 2 houses. One with you, one with his parents. He said he doesn't know which one he lives in. I stared at the words too long. When I picked him up, he held the drawing tight. "Can we keep this one here?" he asked. I nodded. He slipped it into my jacket pocket like a secret. The days blurred. Thomas stayed silent, but his name floated through whispers, neighbors, old friends, half-truths. I ignored them all. People love judgment when it costs them nothing. 2 nights before the hearing, Marion arrived with a file marked Exhibit B. A nurse came forward, she said. "She treated your daughter-in-law. It backs your statement." I thanked her, though the word felt too small for what it meant. Proof always came wrapped in pain. That night, the boy slept on the couch again, the TV humming low. I turned it off, tucked him in, and stayed beside him. His fingers twitched. Maybe dreams carry echoes the same way memories do. Couldn't sleep. Poured a glass of water and caught sight of the same dark car across the street. Headlights off someone sitting still. After a minute, it rolled away, tires whispering over wet pavement. By dawn, I was dressed. The boy noticed the tie. "We going somewhere? Just something I have to do," I told him. "Marion'll take you to school." He nodded, trusting me completely. That trust hurt more than anything else. At the courthouse, Marion handed me a pen. "He's already here," she murmured. Thomas sat across the room, arms folded, jaw locked. He looked older, worn by anger that had nowhere left to go. For a moment, I forgot why we were there. He was still my son. The hearing moved slowly, questions, objections, words, drained of feeling. I answered what I could steady, even when it burned. When Marion played the recording, the one from the night of the call, his voice filled the room, slurred and cruel. A child cried faintly in the background. I kept my eyes on the table but didn't turn away. Thomas froze. His expression cracked, not with fury, but with something smaller shame. It flickered, then vanished. When the judge called for recess, Marion whispered, "That was the hard part." "They all feel hard," I said. We stepped into the corridor. Parents waited, lawyers paced, children clung to strangers who promised safety. I sat on a bench, hands clasped. Thomas walked past without a glance. His ex-wife followed, eyes red but steady. She gave a small nod, nothing more, but enough. Marion handed me a bottle of water. "You did fine. Does fine win anything? Sometimes it just keeps people standing long enough to find out." I drank throat tight. When they called us back, I followed the sound of my name. The words blurred temporary custody, supervised visits, evaluation period. When it ended, Marion gave a small nod. I couldn't tell if it meant we'd won or just survived. We walked to the car. A gust pushed dust across the lot. I reached for the handle, paused, then opened it. The hinges creaked, a reminder that things still move, even when you're not ready. Started the engine, glanced once at the courthouse, and drove away without looking back. The boy sat on the floor toy cars lined in neat rows, looked up, smiling, untouched by the storm beyond our walls. I hung my jacket, tried to sound normal. "You eat yet?" He shook his head. "Can we have spaghetti?" We cooked together. He stirred the sauce while I boiled noodles. The kitchen filled with tomato and garlic. He talked about school, how his teacher said his handwriting was improving. I listened, nodding, but my thoughts drifted to the courthouse, the sound of that recording still echoing somewhere deep. After dinner, he went to watch cartoons. I sat at the table replaying the day. Marion had texted, "The judge wants more documentation. I'll handle it." I sent back thank you. Then stared at the blinking cursor, nothing else to add. The phone rang, an unfamiliar number. A woman's voice, worn but steady. "Mr. Brooks, this is Angela, the nurse who treated your daughter-in-law. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I didn't report it back then. You did more than most," I told her. "You remembered." "I have kids too," she said softly. I couldn't stop thinking about that boy. Neither could I. When the call ended, I sat still. For once, it felt like people were beginning to see what I'd been shouting in silence for years. The boy leaned on my arm. "You're thinking again," he teased. "Always am," I said. "That's what old people do." He laughed, then went back to his show. Small sounds like that, his laugh, his socks sliding on the floor, kept me from unraveling. Later, Marion dropped by. She looked worn, shoulders sagging under long days. The judge requested an emergency review, she said. They might grant temporary custody sooner. That soon, Thomas's lawyer quit. He tried to intimidate a witness. No triumph, just a quiet release. He's running out of places to hide. Marion nodded. That's when men like him get dangerous. Her words landed hard. I told her about the sedan that lingered near the house, the messages. She took notes sharp again. Send me everything. If anything happens, call me first. We'll have a report ready. After she left, the boy was already asleep. Phone buzzed. You've taken everything from me. Watch what happens next. I snapped a photo, sent it to Marion. Her reply came fast. Don't respond. Document only. The house creaked more than usual. I paced the hallway, listening for sounds that weren't there. Around midnight, exhaustion took over. I went to bed with the lamp still on. The boy climbed in beside me at dawn, feet cold against my leg. You were talking in your sleep, he said. You said my dad's name, probably telling him to clean his room, I joked. He giggled. I held him a second longer. You ready for school? He nodded, grabbing his backpack. When we stepped out, tire marks cut deep into the gravel near the mailbox. Someone had been there. I thought about calling Marion, but didn't. Maybe a delivery truck. Maybe not. By the time I parked, Marion had texted. His ex-wife agreed to testify. It's moving fast. Be ready. I didn't know what ready meant anymore. The folder of evidence sat thick on the table. I flipped through until I found the first note I'd written months earlier, just one shaky line. If I stay silent, he wins. I traced the letters, not proud, just amazed I'd kept my word. A garbage truck rumbled past, breaking the stillness. I closed the folder. The rest of the day filled itself laundry dishes, errands that dulled thought, but never erased it. By dusk, I sat on the porch with tea waiting for the boys' bus. Came running, breathless. We learned to make paper planes. A paper dart waved proudly in his hand. Show me, I said. He launched it across the yard. It glided cleanly, landing by the fence. We both laughed. I picked it up, smoothed the folds, handed it back. Make another, I said. We'll see which one wins. A grin spread as small fingers folded a fresh sheet, building something that felt like hope. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it, watching the little pilot chase the plane that landed near my feet. That one wins, he shouted. Maybe he was right. Maybe some things were finally starting to land where they belonged. The week before, the hearing sleep came in fragments. I kept the routines, meals, bedtime, school runs, but something stayed taut beneath the surface. The boy felt it too. He'd sit at the table pretending to draw, waiting for a promise I couldn't give. Marion called. Thomas filed a counterclaim, she said. He's accusing you of manipulating the boy. A dry laugh slipped out. He's still playing the victim. He's scared, she said. People like him panic when they lose control. Be careful, Walter. He's unpredictable. After we hung up, I checked the mailbox. Another envelope, no return address. Inside, a photo of me walking the boy home. On the back, scrawled words. You're not his father. I held it a moment, then tore it in half. Fear tests your balance. It pushes until you forget how to stand. I stayed there, letting the wind take the pieces. That evening, he asked for help with a school project about families. Do I put Dad's name? Put everyone who's part of your life, I said. He drew slowly, thick, dark line between us, faint one toward Thomas. That's still okay, right? It's your tree, I told him. You draw what feels right. When he went to bed, I stared at that paper. Kids tell the truth without trying. Next day, I met Marion. She looked wired, too much caffeine, too little sleep. He's unraveling, she said, sliding me a file. Suspended from work, violated visitation limits. Will it matter? It might. But the judge still needs your side. Don't lose your temper. I'm past temper. Good, she said, though her eyes doubted it. On the way home, I stopped at the store. People recognized me from court. Some offered polite nods, others turned away. In small towns, sympathy always travels with gossip. At checkout, a man from church leaned in. "You're doing the right thing," he whispered. "Some fights are worth the bruises." I nodded, too tired to answer. Words like that sound heavy, but don't hold long. At home, the boy sat near the glass, watching the rain streak the yard. "Sit with me," he asked. We talked about Ducks baseball, the smell of wet grass. Then he asked, "Do people stop loving family?" "Sometimes they don't stop loving," I said. "They just stop letting love hurt them." His small hand found mine. We stayed that way until the rain eased. That night, Marion called again. "The judge might decide sooner. You'll have to speak tomorrow." "Tomorrow. Just tell the truth, Walter." After she hung up, I went through the papers again until the words blurred. Closed the folder, leaned back, and listened to the house settle. Near midnight, the phone rang. Thomas. I almost ignored it, then answered. "You're proud of yourself, aren't you?" His tone was calm, dangerous. "You think you've won. This isn't about winning. That's what people say when they're taking everything. He's my son, not yours. You can't erase me. He'll know the truth," I said. "That's enough." A pause, then a whisper. "You'll regret this." The line clicked dead. I sat still, the hum in my ear colder than any shout. Walked through the rooms, boy asleep, documents in order, but something felt shifted, fragile. At the kitchen table I wrote, "If he can't control me, he'll find another way to break me." Closed the notebook, pressed my palm over the cover. Dawn crept in. The boy wandered in, hair messy, half smiling. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. Big day. He poured cereal, talking about frogs' ponds and a field trip. I let his chatter fill the space where worry lived. The phone buzzed, Marion confirming the time. I texted back, "Ready." He finished eating, rinsed his bowl. "Can I wear my blue shirt?" "Of course." He ran off, laughter echoing down the hall. For once I smiled without forcing it. Poured the last of the coffee, watched the steam fade. The clock edged toward the hour. Whatever came next, I'd already crossed the line I'd avoided all my life. Small feet pattered back. "I'm ready," he said, tugging my sleeve. "Yeah," I said. Me too. The courthouse smelled of disinfectant and old paper. I sat on the same bench, hands on my knees. Marion arrived calm and focused, handing me a folder. "Today's the final session," she said. "You ready? I don't know what that means anymore. You just have to show up. The rest will happen." Thomas entered wearing a suit that didn't fit. His skin was pale, eyes hollow but burning with pride. He didn't glance my way, though his new lawyer did, too confident for someone walking into a lost cause. When the judge appeared, everyone rose. Chairs scraped the floor sharp enough to startle my pulse. I hadn't realized how loud silence could sound. Marion began with the basics, how long the boy had lived with me, whether he felt safe, if I believed his parents could give him stability. Each question carried more weight than it seemed. I answered, simply letting truth handle the rest. Then Thomas's lawyer took over. "Why interfere in your son's family? Why record private calls? Did you ever exaggerate events for sympathy? I did what I had to do to protect a child." Thomas shouted, "He's lying. He's always lied." His voice broke. The bailiff moved closer. "Sit down," the judge ordered. "You'll have your chance." I stayed still. Part of me wanted to calm him like when he was small, but that child was gone. What remained was anger shaped into a man. When he testified, the air tightened. He spoke of my control, how I'd made him feel worthless. Each word another stone thrown. Marion whispered, "Let him talk. He's unraveling." The judge cut him short. "Do you have proof?" he faltered. Not written. Marion stood. Your Honor, we submit recordings and messages from Mr. Brooks' threats attempts at intimidation. The lawyer objected. The judge allowed it. His voice filled the courtroom, slurred, furious, cornered. I didn't look at him, but the shift was clear. Lies were losing ground. When it ended, Thomas stared at the table, fists trembling. The judge called a recess. Marion leaned in. That was it. He's done. I don't feel done, I muttered. It's not over yet, but close. We stepped into the hall, buzzing with other families and lawyers. I tried to breathe, but tension lingered. When we returned, the judge read her decision. Custody transfers to the grandfather. Her tone was flat final. Thomas's lawyer objected. She overruled him. Mr. Brooks, your conduct endangered your child. Visitation will be supervised. Thomas went gray. You took everything from me, he rasped. I shook my head. No, you gave it away. He looked down. The session ended. Marion gathered her files. Congratulations, she murmured. Doesn't feel like one. The boy waited near a social worker. When he saw me, he ran straight into my arms. Can we go home now? Yeah, I said, throat tight. We can. We drove through town without talking. The streets hadn't changed, but something in me had. The fight was over, though. Victory felt hollow, more like standing in what was left. At a red light, the boy asked, Did I do good? You did brave, I told him. That's better. He nodded, content. I turned on the radio just to fill the stillness. At home, he ran in, pancakes for dinner. Sure, his laugh filled the room, light and real. While he mixed batter, I opened the door for air. An envelope lay on the step, no name, just paper. Inside, you'll regret this. I tore it and dropped it in the bin. The sound barely registered. Grandpa, he called. They're ready coming, I said, washing my hands. Flour dusted the counter syrup, smeared the plate, but his grin was wide. They might taste weird. That's the best kind. We ate together, his laughter steadying the house. When he leaned against me, he whispered, You look tired. I am, I said, but it's the right kind. Woke before dawn to a stillness that felt like what's left after a storm. The boy sat at the table eating cereal, humming softly. I poured a cup and tried to smile. The phone rang. Marion. He's missing, she said. My hand tightened on the counter. What do you mean missing? Thomas didn't show for his probation check-in. Phone's off. They've been trying to reach him since last night. Think he's coming here? I don't know. Keep the doors locked. I'll call once I hear more. After hanging up, I walked the house again, pretending to tidy so the boy wouldn't notice. He asked about the park. I said maybe later. Is Dad mad? He's upset. I said, Not your fault. He nodded, spoon scraping the bowl too loud for the small room. Around noon, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped, but it was only a delivery, a court letter confirming custody. I filed it away, the paper no comfort at all. The day dragged. Every sound drew my attention, the mail truck, the porch swing, creaking a car 2 houses down. By dusk, I couldn't sit still. I walked the yard, pretending to water the plants, and saw tire tracks near the curb, the same pattern as before. The boy watched from the glass. When I came in, he whispered, He was here, wasn't he? Maybe I said, but he didn't stay. Dinner passed in near silence. After tucking him in, I sat at the table, writing down the time, the tracks, everything Marion might need. Close to midnight, a knock. Soft, then harder. My body moved before thought. I went to the door, but didn't open it. Dad. His voice came through calm and low. I just want to talk. I stayed still. Another knock, louder. Come on, don't do this. You should leave, Thomas, I said, trying to steady my tone. A pause, then a bitter laugh. You think you've won a piece of paper doesn't change who he is to me. You need help. You can still. A heavy thud cut me off. He'd slammed his shoulder into the door. The boy called from upstairs. I shouted for him to stay put. Another hit. The frame shook. I dialed 911. My son's outside. He's not supposed to be here. The dispatcher asked questions, addressed description weapons. I couldn't answer the last. Thomas yelled, "You stole him from me. Leave before it gets worse." Footsteps moved across the porch, then silence. A car engine revved, fading down the street. My hands trembled as I lowered the phone. Police arrived 20 minutes later. One took notes while the other checked the yard. Fresh footprints, mud on the railing. "File it as a violation," one said. "If he comes back, don't open the door. Call us." After they left, the house felt smaller. I went upstairs. The boy's eyes were open. Was that Dad? Yes. But he's gone. He turned, gripping my hand, until sleep finally took him. Downstairs, I swept the dirt from a broken flower pot roots sticking out like nerves. I worked slowly, as if care could undo the damage. Near dawn, Marion called again. "Police found his car by the highway," she said. "He's not in it, alive." For now, I wrote everything down the knocks, the words, the time he left. The ink smeared once where my hand shook. The boy came downstairs, hair tousled. "Can we go somewhere today?" "Sure. Where? Anywhere that's not here. That sounds perfect." We drove past the edge of town to the lake where we used to fish. The water was still. He skipped stones while I watched the ripples fade. He leaned against my arm. "Do you think he's still mad?" "Yes," I said, "but it's not yours to carry anymore." He kicked at the gravel. "I just want him to stop being angry." "So do I." The day felt lighter, though nothing had changed. The boy was already dressed, shoes on the wrong feet, excited for school. Watching him talk about a spelling test reminded me that Normal could survive even nights like that. While he ate, I checked my phone. Marion's message read, "They found him. He's being held for evaluation. It's over for now." I read it twice, then typed back, "Thank you." At drop-off, he waved from the steps, backpack swinging. I sat in the car a few minutes longer than needed, watching kids pour through the doors like nothing in the world could touch them. Then I drove home. The house looked unchanged, mug on the counter, papers by the sink, but something in it had shifted. I walked through each room, not to check for danger, just to be sure it was all still standing. Marion called near noon. "The court wants a statement about last night," she said. "You don't need to come in. Just write what you remember." "I already did," I said. "It's in the notebook. You can rest now, Walter. He's not your problem anymore." But she was wrong. The problem wasn't him. It was what he'd left behind. Guilt doesn't dissolve just because someone else gets locked away. After the call, I made a sandwich and sat on the porch. The day had turned mild. Neighbors passed, some nodding, others pretending not to see me. I couldn't blame them. Most people don't know how to face someone who's survived a storm that isn't visible. The mail came early. Buried among bills was a letter from the agency, confirmation of guardianship pending review. I traced my name at the bottom, then filed it away. The folder felt lighter now. Later, I drove to the lake, sat on the same bench that creaked whenever you shifted your weight. The stillness helped me think without unraveling. I remembered bringing Thomas here once when he was 9. He'd caught a fish and refused to throw it back. "It's proof I did something right," he'd said. I'd laughed then, not realizing how much he needed that proof. When the sun lowered, I drove back to meet the boy. He ran to the car, waving a gold star. "For helping another kid read," he said. "That's good," I told him. "Helping matters." He grinned, buckled in, and hummed softly all the way home. At the table, he showed me his drawings, bright houses, uneven trees, stick figures smiling near a fence. "That's you and me," he said. "The fence keeps people out." I stared a beat too long. "That's a strong fence." After dinner, he fell asleep on the couch, arm dangling, breathing steady. I covered him and stood still, unsure if what I felt was peace or just the body's way of recovering from fear. My phone buzzed. Marion again. "He's being transferred to rehab. You won't need to testify." I read it twice. Rehab. A soft word for everything that had happened. Maybe mercy, maybe bureaucracy. In the kitchen, I ran a thumb over the dent on the door. It would fade, maybe. Not everything does. The boy murmured something about pancakes in his sleep, and I smiled. I sat down, opened the notebook to a blank page, and wrote, "He came to destroy, but only left space for rebuilding." The words didn't feel like closure, only breathing. A dog barked, once then stopped. I left the window cracked, letting in cool air that carried a trace of rain. I washed the dishes, checked the doors, not from fear, just habit. Upstairs, he'd rolled onto his side, hugging the pillow. I brushed the hair from his forehead. "You're safe," I whispered. "Maybe for him, maybe for me." He didn't stir. The custody hearing came quicker than expected. Marion called early, brisk as ever. "We'll keep it simple," she said. "No new arguments, just stay calm." I said I would, though calm was something I wore more than felt. The boy was at the counter spreading peanut butter with both hands. "Do you have to go to court again?" "Yes," I said, "but this time it's different. You'll come back right before dinner." He nodded, eyes on the toast. Children learn early to measure safety by return times. At the courthouse, Marion met me with a folder. "He's not coming," she said. "His lawyer will stand in. Rehab, still there. They're requesting limited visitation once a month supervised." I nodded, unsure what fit that kind of news. It wasn't joy, more like a weight loosening, but still heavy enough to hold. The same judge presided. Her voice carried fatigue, the kind earned from hearing too many stories like ours. Marion's closing summary was brief, precise. No flourish, just facts lined in order. When asked if I had anything to add, I said, "I only want him to grow up without fear." That was enough. The ruling came fast. Custody granted. Supervised visits allowed after treatment. Marion touched my arm. "You did it. I just didn't walk away this time." We stepped outside. The day was bright, but not celebratory, only normal. "You can rest now," she said, handing me the order. "I'll believe that when things stop shaking inside." "They will," she said, slowly. The drive home stretched longer than it should have. I turned off the radio halfway. When I pulled into the driveway, the boy was waiting on the steps, backpack beside him. He waved, running toward me. "Did it go good?" "It did," I said, ruffling his hair. "We're set." He didn't need the details. Tone was enough. He hugged me, and I let him stay there. We went in. I made grilled cheese while he talked about painting birdhouses at school, his friend falling in the mud, how everyone laughed. His voice filled the house like light. After lunch, he asked to visit the lake again. "I want to see if the ducks are still there." We drove out quiet but content. The road wound through the same turns, past the same trees that had watched everything happen. At the shore, he ran ahead, skipping stones. "Yours always goes farther." "Not today," I said, throwing one that sank halfway. He laughed and tried again. We stayed until the sun dipped. He drew in the dirt with the stick lines looping into shapes only he understood. "Grandpa," he said, "is Dad sick?" "Yes," I said. "But he's getting help. When he gets better, will he come here?" "Maybe. Only if it's safe." He nodded, satisfied. "Can we still go fishing when it's warm?" "Of course. That's a promise." He fell asleep on the way home, hand still clutching the stick. At red lights, I watched his chest rise and fall, piece so simple it almost hurt. At home, I carried him in, covered him, and sat for a moment. The hum of appliances, the creak of the floor, his steady breathing, all of it, formed a rhythm I hadn't heard in years. "Marion texted you, holding up, trying to," I replied. "That's enough for now." I opened my notebook. Earlier pages were chaos, fear in ink. I turned to a blank one and wrote, "The storm passed. The house still stands." The boy murmured something about ducks. I smiled, locked. The door turned off the porch light and sat beside him. His breathing steadied mine. Weeks passed with a softer stillness. The boy slipped easily into rhythm school homework, small stories that only matter when you're young. His chatter filled the spaces that once echoed. Each day began the same. I packed his lunch, waited for the sound of small feet on the stairs. "Can I take the red apple?" he'd ask. "The green ones taste weird. Simple normalcy. Fragile, steady, worth everything." Marion stopped by one afternoon with the final papers. "That's it," she said, tapping the folder. "Everything's official. He's yours now." I thanked her, though words felt too small. She stayed for tea, mostly silent. Before leaving, she looked toward the boy sprawled on the floor coloring. "He looks lighter," she said. "So do you." After she left, I flipped through the pages. Legal words never carried warmth, but seeing my name beside his gave me something solid permanence. That evening, he asked to invite a friend from school. When they came the next day, the house filled with shouts and laughter until my head ached in the best way. I made them sandwiches and listened to their Talk Dragons Rockets comic books. Their world was still wide untouched by the weight adults dragged behind them. When his friend left, he sat beside me. "You didn't yell when we spilled juice," he said. "I've yelled enough," I told him. He grinned. "You're nicer now. I'm trying." The next day, we went to buy a new doorbell. "Can I press it first?" he asked. "Only if you help install it." He held the flashlight past me screws. When it clicked into place, he pressed it. The chime rang clear through the house. He pressed it again, laughing. "It works." "Yeah," I said, "it does." A few days later, a letter came from the rehab center. Thomas had agreed to continue treatment and wanted to start writing. I read it twice, then set it aside. No apology, no anger, just words. For once, I didn't rush to reply. Some things heal on their own schedule. That evening, washing dishes, I thought how many times I'd pictured this ending, louder, sharper, final. But life doesn't end in declarations. It just softens into motion. The boy ran in with a drawing. "It's us," he said proudly. Two stick figures, again lined stronger this time. "I gave you hair." "Appreciated," I said. He pointed to a bright sun. "That means it's morning, not night." Good choice. I pinned it to the fridge beside the grocery list. It looked right there, ordinary, unremarkable, exactly where it belonged. Next day, we walked to the bus stop. He talked nonstop about a zoo trip. When the bus came, he turned once more and waved. I watched until it vanished down the street, the sound fading into everyday noise. Back home, the house felt bigger without him. I folded laundry, swept, sat down with my cup. Through the glass, the street looked calm. No police cars, no letters, no waiting for the next knock. Just life moving forward. A message from Marion blinked on my phone. Checking in. "You okay?" "We're fine," I typed back. "He's happy." "Good." Take a breath once in a while. I set the phone aside and looked at the clock. The day would keep moving, school pickup, dinner, another bedtime story. There were still bills, dishes, long pauses between sounds, but none of it scared me anymore. When he came home, bursting through the door, he shouted, "We saw lions and penguins." I fed a giraffe. I listened, letting his excitement pour out until his voice cracked. After dinner, we sat on the porch as the sky dimmed. He leaned against me, watching the stars appear. "Do you think the moon watches us?" "Maybe," I said. "But it's got a lot of people to watch." He laughed, then yawned. I carried him upstairs, his head on my shoulder, light as breath. Spring came slow that year. Snow thinned to mud grass pushing through. The boy called it the earth waking up, and I liked that enough not to correct him. Our days slipped back into rhythm. He woke before the alarm, and I followed soon after, drawn by the sound of bowls clattering and his sleepy talk about dreams he half remembered. The mornings were unhurried, simple hours. He'd grown taller, his feet no longer dangled from the kitchen chair. He reminded me to sign his forms pack, an extra snack check the forecast, before letting him wear shorts. The shift came roles trading places without either of us naming it. I'd started tutoring again at the community center 3 afternoons a week, a handful of kids who disliked math but tolerated it because I didn't rush them. It gave my days shape. Sometimes he waited for me there, reading comics in the corner, until I finished. Before we left, he always asked to wipe the whiteboard. "It looks better clean," he'd say. Marion still called now and then. She'd left her firm, said she wanted more time in her garden. "You got me thinking about slowing down," she joked. "Turns out I like breathing more than billing." "You've earned that," I told her. Letters from Thomas came every few weeks. The early ones were bitter, full of blame. Later they softened talk of therapy, of moments where clarity cut through shame. I never replied, but read them all. The boy didn't know. Someday he would when he was old enough to see them as truth, not betrayal. Sometimes I wondered if Thomas was really getting better, if the stillness we lived in would last. But those thoughts drifted faster now. Fear had shrunk into something manageable, a shape that stayed on the edge of vision. One Sunday, the boy asked to visit the lake. "It's been forever," he said. We packed sandwiches and lemonade, drove out through thawing fields. He ran ahead, skipping stones that barely reached the middle. I threw a few too, mostly to keep him company. He laughed whenever one of mine sank. We ate by the water crusts curling in the damp. "When I grow up," he said, "I think I want to teach. Like you. Teaching's hard work. Yeah, but you still do it." That answer made me smile. He had a way of saying things that stayed with you longer than they should. On the drive home, he fell asleep again. The town felt softer now, same fences, same flickering grocery store sign, but stripped of tension. Ordinary had become proof that peace could stay. At home, he disappeared into his room to draw. Lately, he'd been sketching houses and bridges, sometimes one that looked like ours. He brought me a new page. "See, I made a room for you and one for me. And a big window so we can see the rain. Looks perfect. You can keep it." I pinned it beside the old drawing, the one with the fence and the sun. They fit together easily. That night, Marion called. We talked about the boy, his new baseball cards, the toast he nearly burned trying to surprise me with breakfast. "That's progress," she said, laughing. Before hanging up, she added, "You sound lighter." "Maybe I'm just used to the weight," I said. After the call, I sat with tea watching the street grow still. A dog barked, once then nothing. The boy padded in wearing pajamas too short at the ankles. "Can we read before bed? Which one? The one about the grandpa and the boat." He leaned against me as I read. The story ended with the boat finally floating again. "They did it," he murmured. "Yeah," I said, "they did." He drifted off before I closed the book. I stayed there, matching my breath to his, the kitchen clock ticking steady in the background. I carried him to bed, tucked the blanket around his shoulders, and switched off the lamp. Downstairs, the house hummed pipes, whined a few soft creaks. I made another cup of tea, let the warmth spread through my hands. The moon hung pale behind thin clouds, nothing symbolic, just another night finding its rest. I rinsed the cup, left it by the sink, turned off the light. Upstairs, he stirred, one side, and settled again. I paused by his door, listening to the even rhythm of sleep, then kept walking down the hall, the house breathing around us, steady alive, and finally unafraid.